Yay, we're live. Okay, so I said before, I don't know what I'm going to say. The first thing that popped into my head when you popped up is we are live, like I'm
Oh, wow.
watching the UFC event. So forgive me. Um Anyways, we are back with another episode from another amazing fan that is here to talk about their Chargers and to give us all the inside information that we didn't know that we needed. So, if you want to just introduce yourself, Josh, let us know who you are, what makes you a fan, really anything you want to share with us.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for having me. My name is Joshua Howdige. I'm born, raised, living in Southern California. Fan of all the LA teams,
Mm,
Dodgers, Lakers, and now the Chargers. Now, the way I got into the Chargers, though, is a little bit interesting. And because being in LA in the 90s, being raised in the 90s, we didn't have a team.
yeah.
The two teams we had, the Raiders and the Rams, were taken away from us.
Mhm.
And funny enough, I probably would have been a Rams fan, but growing up, the team wasn't there. I lost interest in football until about high school. And, in the broadcasting, they would always show the Raiders and Rams games still in LA. And then sometimes for the AFC, they would, if they were alternating, they would show Chargers games.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I remember distinctly that I watched my dad growing up, always watching different sports and stuff. He would watch a Charger game. I'm like, why are you watching, this team or whatever? And the one thing he said was, it's the closest thing to LA. And being an LA homebody and just like loving all of LA sports, I just like pointed out, okay, that's my team. My
Yeah.
friends in high school were watching a lot of football and I started getting back into it and such. Fantasy football was a thing and I didn't have a team. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm just going to go in with the Chargers. And back then, our starting quarterback was Doug Flutie.
Oh
Um,
my gosh, that's so funny.
yeah. And so the team I didn't know much about. I didn't know much about football. We ended up drafting Drew Brees and
Mhm.
LT. And just watching it growing up, I was fortunate to see the Schottenheimer years. They just had a good string of after Breeze went out, they drafted this guy named Philip Rivers, and he had
Yeah. He did all
LT.
right.
Yeah, he had an okay career.
All right.
Antonio Gates was there. A lot of good teams in between, a lot of bad teams as well. And then it just kept rolling. We've been fortunate enough to get Justin Herbert to keep that momentum going as far as QBs and to keep me engaged. So
Yeah.
they've made a they've been an interesting team, so to say, but they've also had a lot of good star players to keep the fans in line. So.
I think that's awesome. Can I just say that every fan says, like, the fans that are like support their team, they always say that. They're like, there's been some great years, and then there's been some really bad ones. It's like that's what unites us as fans are not the good years, it's the bad years because we're all like, oh yeah, y'all are going through that. Yeah, we did that too. Yeah, we were there. I know. So that's cool. You mentioned Justin Hubert, the quarterback. How do people like him in LA? Like, is he do people love him? I feel like sometimes I go to battle for him because I feel like he has like all the intangibles of being a good quarterback. But how do you all feel about him?
So Justin Herbert
Herbert,
is yeah,
Herbert.
Justin Herbert. He was the 10th pick, I believe, in the 2020 draft. I got my dates might be off a little bit, but
Better than me. At least you got his name right.
our GM was already kind of under fire. His name was Tom Telesco, and he had questionable picks and such. And even Justin Herbert, when he was drafted, people were like, "That wasn't the QB." The big thing back then on that draft was either Tua from Miami or Justin Herbert. And the Chargers went with Justin Herbert. I believe they had the pick before Tua. So there's always been a little rivalry
Mm,
between Tua from Miami and Justin Herbert. That's kind of gone on even to this day. So
yeah.
in national media, Tua has been more of the darling, and Justin Herbert's kind of just been, oh well, he's the guy for the Chargers. Charger fans love him. The contract was what they wanted. He just got extended for 5 years, one of the
Okay.
biggest contracts out there for quarterbacks, and he is our guy. A lot of national criticism, though, that I notice is that his leadership. He's more of a quiet guy. He's a little bit more
Okay.
dorky guy. Um, Maybe a little bit kind of like Andrew Luck, if folks remember him. A little
Okay.
bit more introverted, but he's the leader on the field. He stands up for his guys, and his guys stand up for him. So fans are have him behind, have his back.
Yeah.
Harbaugh, he was one of the biggest reasons that Harbaugh came over to the Chargers. One thing we heard, kind of rumors a while ago, there's a bunch of NFL executives that were meeting at a funeral, and I don't remember the
Oh
funeral.
gosh.
I know it's kind of morbid,
This
but
sounds terrible.
it does. But the rumor is that Harbaugh was there with other executives and other coaches, and he was just talking about how Justin Herbert, like he loved Justin Herbert, and
Okay.
that's when the rumors started swirling and everything like that. So he was our big attractor to get John Harbaugh over to the Chargers.
I think Harbaugh made the best decision, and like I said, I often hear people talk about but I also think that we have to put things in context. I feel like not a lot of people watch Charger games just by way of where you're located. So if you're on the East Coast, it's a lot harder because a lot of times it's like 7 p.m., 8 p.m. when they're playing. But so many people have so many different opinions. But I will say this, and I don't think I've said this anywhere publicly. There's an interesting dynamic with me with Harbaugh and Colin Kaepernick and how he got the best out of Kaepernick. And I'm wondering how that's going to help him now with the Chargers because I feel like he has a similar quarterback in intangibles. Justin has a big arm. I think he's super athletic. He seems like a cool guy. So I'm just kind of curious to see like how that works out because I think I can see it, but I also could be crazy. But it feels like a really good fit for Harbaugh.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're hoping for, and it might not seem the way that folks think.
Mm,
You can even see how he built it out in the draft. He didn't he had the opportunity to take the number 2 wide receiver, and that's the
mhm.
big sexy pick.
Yeah.
But what did he do? He decided to get the best offensive lineman in the draft. To protect Herbert. Now,
Right.
Herbert in the last few years has not had an offensive line. He has been the guy, and he has had to work 10 times harder, I feel, than a lot of other folks to make plays, to extend drives. He was one of the most sacked quarterbacks, or they had a lot more QB pressures. I'm sorry,
Oh,
I believe it
interesting.
was most QB pressures, but least sacks. That ratio somewhere around there, where he's just trying to extend
His
plays.
athleticism. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think his athleticism, I don't think we talk about it enough. And
Yeah,
I think it's one of those things like if you're a fan, you've seen it. If you've watched a couple games, you've kind of seen it, but I think that's his intangible. I'm going to be honest. As a Steelers fan, I was like, is he going to be available? This is before we got Fields and Wilson. I was just like, I think he has things that we haven't really seen yet. I feel like his ceiling hasn't been reached yet.
absolutely, and we're hoping that John Harbaugh in the next few years will be able to get the best of him. And like I said, they really John Harbaugh intends to make the game at the line of scrimmage. So
Mhm.
he wants
True.
to really win the battle there. So that
Yeah.
means the offensive line. You'll see in the draft, he also picked up some other wide receivers that are maybe not the better ones, but they have good protection. They're
Yeah.
in, they might not be the flashy, people who can run the 4.5 or really fast, but they have run protection. And he did that with every single pick that he picked that to strengthen the line of scrimmage. So hopefully that gives Justin Herbert more time.
Yeah.
And he can build the rapport with we know he has a cannon of an arm. We know he has the
He does.
accuracy. He can build that rapport with the receivers that he has. He just needs to have that extra protection, that confidence on his line. So we're hoping to have really big things in the next this year and the next few years coming for
I love
Justin
that.
Herbert.
Can I just say before we get into free agency, I think the whole world, if you watch sports at any point, like, you cannot be cheering for the Kansas City Chiefs right now, and I, like, will say that to the Kansas City Chiefs fans, so it's like, we need somebody to step up and take care of that, and so, I don't listen, if it's the Chargers, amazing, if it like, somebody needs to step up and be like, "No, we're here to win too," that we would all appreciate it. Just like we appreciate it when it happened to the Patriots, right? It's like no one's cheering for that team, but their fans. Like, lose, please, and thank you. Well, cool. So tell me a little bit about free agency. How did you guys do? Is there anybody that you picked up where people are excited, or how do you feel like you all fared in free agency?
So free agency was a funny thing, and kind of like I said, we keep talking. I keep saying John, but John Harbaugh was the one that we that was our big splash. That was it.
It was a
That was
big
where,
spot.
we're gonna that's our bread and butter there.
Yeah.
And he came in, and we coming in, we were already in really cap strap. We had just
Oh,
paid
okay.
Mike Williams, Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Keenan Allen. All those were our four big players that we weren't going to be able to keep. So, we had in free agency, there was a couple. First of all, it's almost an addition by loss a little bit. We had to pick two of those people to kind of get rid of. There was no way we were going to keep all four of them.
Yeah.
The one person we kind of knew that we were going to cut was going to be Mike Williams, just because of his injury. He's very injury prone.
He ACL. Was he an ACL?
Week 3, I believe he tore his ACL against
Okay.
the Minnesota Vikings this past year, unfortunately. And he's a big time guy. He's a big time player, jump ball player, a
Mhm.
receiver. And he unfortunately tore his ACL, and that was most likely the writing on the wall. He's been injured a lot. He's been great for us when we needed him. He was actually what we would call the Chief killer, because he would always show up when they were playing the Chiefs. He would always make that one play,
God bless
or
him.
yeah. And we're, Chargers fans, as long as they're not playing against us, a lot of the times we tend to root for the player. So he went to the Jets, and we're really looking forward to him, to seeing what he can do with Aaron Rodgers. That might be a good fit.
Yeah.
But the other three players, we didn't know what were going to happen. A lot of folks thought, Keenan Allen having the success that he had the last few years, being the consistent number
Yeah.
one guy for Justin Herbert. We thought we were going to keep him. So a lot of folks thought, well, Joey Bosa might be out, Khalil Mack might retire. But strange enough, we ended up keeping Joey Bosa, restructuring Khalil Mack's contract, and trading Keenan Allen for a draft pick, which was something that was, it hurt a lot of fans. We
Yeah.
thought that he was going to retire as a Charger. But also too, this is kind of Jim Harbaugh's his forte, to build a defense, not the sexy team players and stuff. He wants to build a good team. And so we're excited. We're hoping that Joey Bosa can stay healthy and get back to his regular play. Khalil Mack, through the last couple seasons where there have been bad teams, he's been a consistent. He's been
Yeah.
healthy.
Good
Last
for
year
him, man.
he had like a 7-game sack, or 7 sacks in one game against the Raiders, and it
It's
was just,
wild.
yeah, it was crazy. He's
Wait,
been.
was that the Raiders game? That it was like 3-0 or
No, okay, so no. That was
okay.
against Minnesota.
Okay. Oh my
This,
gosh.
yeah, yeah. This was the first Raiders game. Now the
Oh,
second
okay,
Raiders
okay, okay.
game was Brandon Staley's last game, when it was like 64 to whatever.
Right there, that's the okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I remember the Raiders did, like, the lowest scoring game that was so boring, and
yeah,
then they did the total opposite. So it's
exactly.
like
Yeah.
okay, okay, got
Yeah.
it.
Now that was a tough one to watch, but I mean, it brought us to this point. So,
Yeah,
going back kind of to your question, in free agency, we were cap strapped. So, we're
fair.
taking a lot of risks. One of our biggest needs after Austin Eckler walked in free agency was running back. So they went ahead and picked up Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, and you'll see a little trend here of players that we're getting, both from the Baltimore Ravens,
For
because
the Raisins, yeah, I
yeah,
was gonna say that.
Yeah.
Now, is it considered cheating if you have a brother that's a coach and you call your brother and say, "Hey, I need a little help here."
It's I always wonder that dynamic because
Yeah.
we did bring a lot of folks. Their RGM Horwitz came over from the Ravens as well too. So
Interesting.
but you'll see, and this is kind of something we'll touch base maybe a little bit later on. But one of the games we have this year is going to be the Harbowl 2.0. So,
Nice. Love
so
it.
I don't know how much John wants to help his brother Jimmy over here, but because we're going to be seeing them this year. So,
Yeah, I love that. Well, listen, um, he's probably thinking the same thing I'm thinking, whatever it takes to beat the Chiefs. Because if you beat them and take care of them, I'll lose to my brother. I'll beat my brother. That's better than these guys. Like nobody wants like come on. Well, that's cool. So the next question is, what do you think about the draft? How was the draft for you all? I know you mentioned a couple of people that you were super excited for. And like I feel like one thing Harbaugh is going to do is build a team.
yeah.
Like that I mean, I feel like if more coaches well, it's debatable if coaches have the time that Harbaugh is afforded to have to build, but one thing he will do is build a team. And so I would love to know what you think about like the draft picks, how you think the draft went. Do you have like a favorite player that people are already kind of buzzing about, or how do you all feel about the draft?
Absolutely. I can tell you, we had the fifth pick in the draft, and there was a couple scenarios that most folks in Chargers land were looking at. One was, like you mentioned, building a team.
Mhm.
And one thought was that they would trade down and get more picks. To
Mm,
get more value picks because there was deep it was a deep draft for wide receivers,
yeah.
offensive linemen a little bit. So that was a big rumor that was going around that we were going to trade down. The cookie cutter pick that people thought we were going to be getting was going to be Malik Neighbors. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
From
so
LSU.
from LSU, yeah, because
Okay.
the first three teams were going to be going quarterback.
Right.
So the team by one field goal that got the fourth pick right above us was Arizona, and either they were going to trade, which wasn't very likely, or they were going to get the number one wide receiver, which was Marvin Harrison Jr.
Okay.
There was talks about who was going to get either Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors. But regardless, it was assumed the Chargers, who did need a wide receiver because we traded away Keenan Allen, our others went out on free agency and already went away. We released Mike Williams. Wide receiver was definitely a need, so it was almost assumed that we
Yeah.
were going to get one of the wide receivers. And off to the side, people were saying, well, maybe they're going to go offensive line and get Joe Alt. And it was even a joke. You go onto the Charger Reddit, people were joking about, oh, yeah, we're going to get Joe Alt. Lo and behold, pick number 5. They pick Alt. And people were unhappy. I remember the big reaction, a lot of instant reaction. People were like, "What the heck are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
you guys just got, an offensive lineman. He is I believe, in Notre Dame. He was naturally a left tackle, but we're already slated, or we already have a left tackle." And Rashawn Slater, all pro, everything, so he's going to have to transition into the right side.
Okay.
So, people are kind of questioning that. So, but the instant reaction wasn't good. But then, like you said, building a team, right? So the next days of the draft, he addressed the wide receiver in the next pick with
That's
Lad
awesome.
McConkey from Georgia. Great route runner, really fast. So something that the Chargers haven't had. Chargers are known to be getting big players. You have the Mike Williams, you had our Vincent Jacksons.
My
You
favorite, Antonio Gates.
Yeah, oh, Antonio Gates, yeah, big, tall players. That's the forte that the Chargers have been. Lad McConkey, 5'10" or so, a little bit injury prone. I guess that would be the concern. But a good wide receiver. He addressed that area. Now the
Nice.
second part where Harbaugh, everyone was wondering what was he going to go get his Michigan guys.
Yeah.
In the third round, he ended up picking Junior Colson, which was a linebacker. Just a Harbaugh guy. I believe in the last 3 games or so, he was playing with 2 clubs on his hand. So we're looking,
Oh, right, right, right.
yeah.
Okay.
So we're looking for good things with him, linebacker, and then one area of concern I am is our defensive line. They ended up getting a defensive tackle. as well. And then they went cornerback, running back. Now, some sleeper picks that I thought were interesting was we ended up getting, I forgot his first name, but it was Jerry Rice's son from USC, who
Oh, right,
ended
because he fell to like the 6th round, didn't
he
he?
seventh
7th.
round. So he was available there. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting wide receiver
How
room. And
tall
then,
is he? Do you know? Like, that's super random.
not
I
off
don't.
the top of my head, but I do know I believe he's taller than his dad. So
Oh, okay.
he's taller, and I think he's a little bit bigger too.
I like
But
it.
we'll see how that runs out. I think that was a great value pick down there. So
For
it also
sure.
creates the best thing that I feel for the team, which is competition. So we
Mhm.
have a wide receiver now. We drafted 3 wide receivers. We picked up I believe DJ Clark, or DJ Shark, I think is his name. Earlier
You're
this
doing better
week.
at you listen, you're doing better at me than names because I'm like I'm like, I remember you from your face, but I
Exactly.
cannot tell you your name.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. You're on my fantasy team. I remember that name. I've never had to say it out loud before, but
Yeah,
yeah, no,
that's so funny.
but and in totality, after seeing the whole draft, like I really do think that alt pick was a great pick, and they're going to slide him over to right tackle. We do have a right tackle, Trey Pipkins, that we just extended, so it's going to create competition. And I
Good.
feel for us as an organization, like within, that's what I want to see. I want to see people fighting for those positions, and also too, if they don't get the positions, well, now we have depth, which is something that Chargers haven't had. If someone gets injured, well, we have the next guy up to fill that spot.
Yeah,
So
that's
we
good.
filled a lot of holes with that.
Yeah. I just wanna say, like, as a Steelers fan, sometimes I feel like we have too much depth because we always have to see those guys.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm like, "Here we go again." Like, no name somebody that plays linebacker that nobody knows, throw him out there. Like, let's
Yeah.
see how he does. So so I hear you on that. So since we talked a little bit about the draft, your team, and where you feel like you're headed, what is your biggest concern heading into the season? Just overall, feels like you're kind of like in rebuild, but still expecting great things. But what would be something you would be concerned about heading into the season?
Although we have depth in a lot of areas, still, our defensive backs are maybe a little slim, and our defensive line. So I mean, I guess
Mm,
that seems like a lot of defensive areas. We have a safety, Derwin James, amazing when he's healthy. He can play anywhere on the
yep.
field. But on the other side is kind of where we might be a little bit lacking. Our cornerbacks, where we have a bunch of new folks coming in from the draft, so we're kind of leaning on that
Yeah.
to see if they can, really produce. Another area is we have our 2 edge rushers, Khalil Mack, and Joey Bosa. But we also, and they drafted the linebacker, but we also have another edge rusher named Tui Tola Tupu. Okay, that one I'm gonna mess up
Is
on.
it to a I think I know who exactly you're talking. I can see his face.
Yeah, Tuli, and I believe he was from USC, and he was drafted in the 3rd round last year. So, but that's an area where we're not as
Gotta
deep yet.
perform. Yeah.
So little holes here in the defensive line. Another couple things is just like the high expectations we might have as a team.
Mm.
You know, I th-
What was your record last year? Was it 8? Did you win 8 games?
oh no, we won like 4 games or
4? Of
something
course you
like
did
that.
because you picked of course you did.
Yeah,
Duh,
yeah,
duh. Okay.
we got up there. Justin Herbert got injured, and after that, it was
And
it
then
was
the
over.
coach, like, everybody kinda knew he wasn't
Yeah,
that wasn't gonna work. Okay.
yeah. Brandon Staley, he had good coach speak, but it was he didn't really put good execution onto it.
Were
But yeah. Now
Chargers
that we
fans
got
happy when he got fired? Were y'all like, "Okay, it's time to move on."
it was there, and it was our GM as well too. So everything got revamped. Tom
Okay.
Telesco's there for like 10 years. We've never won a division.
No,
The
yeah.
Chiefs didn't help us much either.
Yep.
Um, so it was a challenging time when we had him, and this was his 3rd coach. So if Staley was going to go, it only made sense for Telesco to go.
Yeah, that's fair.
And also what helped too was the Chargers moving to LA, a lot of different media pressure. I believe ownership started hearing, not liking a lot of the national media. They were getting all the negative ones. They
Yes.
had a way of being cheap and not, really investing, whether it was in players, free agency, or even in coaches. So it was a really big deal when they got Jim Harbaugh, but with that comes a high expectations.
It
So
does.
so
Yeah.
that might be one thing for not even the team, but also Justin Herbert as well too. So, but it'll
Yeah.
be an interesting season, so to say. We're
It
hoping.
will be. It's like you guys are in like a unique situation because it's like usually first year head coaches don't come in with a quarterback that they know it's their quarterback. So he has a leg up in that regard, but then all the other stuff, it's still his first year. It's still, he still has to build, he still has to do some things. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen that often. It's usually one or the other. It's usually like this team is loaded. Here's the new coach. Figure it out. You better win all the games.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's how we are as fans. So is there anything like hardest game on the schedule, games this year that you've kind of been thinking about? As of this recording, the schedule's not out yet. So, but have you thought of any games or anything where you're like, okay, I'm gonna circle this one, or I'm paying attention to this one just to see like how we match up? Or how, like, what do you think when you look at y'all schedule?
Pretty easy. We kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. We're the Chiefs twice a year, so we're definitely gonna circle those on the calendar to see how we perform against them. Always the Chargers, no matter how good or bad each team's been in the last 10 years, they've always been close games, usually
Okay.
one score games or so that we've had with them. So we're always super competitive on them. So those are always going to be the challenging games on our schedule. And then the Harbaugh. That's what I have circled. We're
Okay.
projected. I think maybe around Thanksgiving or something. That's
Yeah.
what I heard a little bit, but just to see that prime time game,
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a nationally televised game, and it'll
It
probably be a
better
good.
be. They
Oh
better not
yeah.
screw this one up. Like, come on. Like, give us what we want.
Oh, definitely, definitely. But those are the games that we're
Yep.
looking forward to this year.
Awesome. So before we end this, is there anything else that you just like want us to know about your team? Fun fact about being a Chargers fan, or really anything. I always like to you obviously know the Chargers way better than I probably ever will. That doesn't mean that I don't watch and I don't see little things, and obviously I see the same media, like.
Yeah,
But I just don't think we hear a lot about the Chargers in national media unless they're really good or really bad. We don't
yeah.
hear the middle stuff of the building, the teamwork. You know what I mean? Like we just don't hear it. So I'm just curious to know, is there anything we should know as just football fans of what's happening with the Chargers or things you guys are looking out for?
I definitely think what you said is very true as far as not being in the media's eyes and such. And I really do think that this year you're going to see a lot.
Oh,
You're going to
cool.
see a lot more of the Chargers. They just built a brand new facility. Jim Harbaugh and his antics, you're going to see him on the
Yep.
sidelines. That's enough to get media, to get on TV and Sports Center and everything.
Yeah.
And we're just super, super pumped. This is a real new era. The ownership is doing things they never done before. We've been hiring first year coaches. So this is our last three coaches were first year coaches and hasn't worked out. So this is the first time we've had a coach that was proven. He has a
Yeah.
winning record when he came to the NFL. His first round, he built a national championship team at Michigan. Always had a winning record. So
Mhm.
um, we're just super excited, super stoked this year. We're expecting good things. As a realist for me, I'm looking probably more at a 9-8 record.
That's fair.
Being conservative, hopefully get that one over the 500 record. But yeah, we're just super stoked, and I feel like you'll see a lot more of us this coming year.
That's
On
good.
that.
I love that. I like it because I feel like sometimes I'm like, I don't care if Dallas loses another game. Like, show us other things. There's so much more to the sport, compared to the people that we always see. In a weird way. I mean, being a Steelers fan, even for me, sometimes I'm like, yeah, we saw that already. Like, what are the Cardinals doing? Like what's
Yeah.
going on with Seattle? Like, show us things that we just don't see as often. So, but again, now I'm just complaining. Nobody cares what I think, but that's just me and what I want to see. Well, I appreciate you talking to me about your team. I appreciate the fact that you even care to talk to me about your team. And I also love that you are a self-reflective fan. Sometimes I feel like fans can be like, "Oh, we're winning it all this year. Like it doesn't matter who it like we got everything we need." And you're like, "Really? Like everything you need? You won 3 games last year, or whatever it is." So I just appreciate your perspective on being honest and saying, we're building. We'll get there, but we're building. And I respect that. So I wish more people that were fans of any team, in any sport, because volleyball fans are like that too. They're like, my team's going to the championship. I'm like, really? Your team like hasn't done anything in 15 years. Anyways, I'm just rambling. But so I appreciate you. Thank you for being willing to like come and talk to me and share a little bit about what's going on in and what do y'all say? Chargers world or chart? What is the hashtag? Like, what's the
Bolt up. That's a
well,
hashtag
okay,
bolt up.
okay.
But
I
yeah.
probably won't say that. I'll just say what's happening in the Chargers.
Chargers Nation. Chargers
Chargers,
Nation.
there we go. I'm like,
Yeah.
bolt up gets a little tricky.
Yeah.
But I just appreciate you and thank you for coming on. And I do. I hope you guys have a great season. I hope that you guys beat the Chiefs twice. Um, and I hope that this year Harbaugh's like shows like what he can do and just continues to build on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. No problem.